We're listening to the Ron Keel Band from the album Fight Like a Band, and that solo was performed by none other than David Cothern. We have David Cothern joining us here on episode 7 of Columbus Local Podcast. And David, it's so great to see you again. Thank you for joining me.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me. It's been way too long. I think you said earlier it was like 20 years?
A little over 20 years.
Holy cow.
And it's a lot of life we've lived, hasn't it?
Man, you're not kidding. I mean, life can change in the blink of an eye, as you know. And I'm glad to see that you're still playing, man. Yeah, that's awesome.
I do play.
Yeah.
I humbly play.
Yeah.
But 20 years ago, David, we met in a suburb in Columbus, Ohio. We were neighbors. Yeah. And I think you were playing bass at the time.
Yeah. I now that I think about it, I think I met you at a swimming pool. And someone said, "Hey, Len plays guitar too," and I'm like, "Of course he does." And most people you run into, they're just casual, players, right? But I knew when we went over to your house, I think later that night, and you showed me your man cave. I'm like, "Oh, this guy, he gets it. Like, there's you have guitar running through your blood."
I've always loved music,
yeah.
And I did appreciate running into people that really knew what they were doing, because I started late in life. I started, when I was 36, around that time that we had met.
Yeah. I started, really super early on after watching Don Kirshner's rock concert. It was Alice Cooper was on, and I was like, wow, that looks pretty cool. I think I need to start a rock band with my neighborhood buddies. And little did I know those guys would end up along with me. Just, it was a life-changing moment, and we just never looked back. We've all been, just music. It's just been fantastic, and I'm glad, every one of those guys from my neighborhood have shared some level of success, and I'm pretty happy for everybody.
David, where was that neighborhood?
Well, for anybody who's in Columbus, where Northland Mall is, was kind of Morse Road area between Mays Road and Morse Road. Actually, later on, the Alrosa Villa is in that area, so that was very, very convenient for us as young people to kind of get up to the Alrosa and experience rock and roll,
Seeing it and then performing it.
Oh,
and
man. Yeah,
helping, to be a part of that whole community, right?
I'm telling you, yeah. That whole Alrosa, that's where I cut my teeth. Everything I kind of learned early on about rock and roll was from going to the Alrosa. I'll never forget, actually. Walked into the Alrosa Villa for the very first time, and it was Sweet Savage was playing there. And I, fresh out of high school, I'd never seen anything like this. I just hair everywhere, and it just loud and all this stuff. It was like sensory overload, and it's just changed my life.
And you got bit.
Man, hard. Yeah, it's like Joey C. Jones. That was my first bar band experience, and I'm like, oh my God, this is fantastic. Yeah, and from that point forward, if I wasn't all in by that point, I was definitely in there. Yeah, it was great.
So,
but, some of those other guys in the neighborhood, Tim Owings, who ended up singing with Shock 2 and had a great, he's still at it today, and Dave Mannering, who ended up playing guitar in Stare North and Armada, two bands that were, I wasn't in town, but I understand they were very successful, so... kudos to those guys, man. All three of us have shared some level of success, like I said, and I couldn't be happier for all three of us.
Well, it's interesting because I did play last night, and it was out in Coshocton, and I had mentioned that you were coming over and hanging out today, and we were going to do a podcast episode, and there were folks there that had known you, and everybody I talked to, David, loves you.
Oh man, that's awesome.
And they're happy for you.
That's
and
great.
I've never heard a negative word. It's not. And I'm out there every weekend, seeing a band or when we're not gigging, and you're still fondly.
Man, that's awesome. That's good to hear because it means a lot to me. This is my home, and it's good to know that I left a footprint that's in a positive light. That's fantastic. I really enjoy. I think back over all the years of all the people who supported me, supported the music scene in general, not just the bands I was in, but just supporting local live music. I mean, it's incredible the amount of dedication from people who don't play guitar. They don't really have like, you know, the same motivation that you and I have as being guitar players, wanting to watch other guitar players. These people are just fans of music, and they are just dedicated beyond words, really. And I couldn't be any more thankful. So the fact that they still remember me and don't have cuss words after my name, that's a good thing, man. I'm pretty happy.
No way. Yeah. So you're with the Ron Keel band now.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
Well, let's see. I'm trying to figure out where to start. Actually, the latest thing that we did was we just did a single, and kind of a neat story behind the single. So, you know, we have fans all over the world, and sometimes they'll email, and it's like, you know, when this pandemic is over, I really hope that you come to England or, you know, come back to Australia or whatever. And you know, it struck Ron really hard, like, when this is over. And you know, there's just certain phrases that people say, they just jump out of the page at you, you know, and it's like, there's a song in that. So he wakes me up in the middle of the night, grab your guitar, I got a song idea. And so I grab my guitar, and he goes, he set it up just the way I told you, you know, I got this fan from, you know, I forget where they were from, honestly, but we can't wait to see you guys when this is over. And I had scrap music left over from 1985 that was still in my head that I've never really used. It was a Petty Theft song. For those people who go way back in the music scene in Columbus, you remember Petty Theft. I had written some music while I was in Petty Theft that actually didn't use it, and I used it for this song. And we wrote this song in probably 15 minutes. It was like, you've heard stories of Jimmy Page and Robert Plant writing Stairway to Heaven in 15 minutes, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. You guys are the exception to the rule, but it actually happened to us. We wrote an entire song front to back, 15 minutes, and it was probably one of the best pieces we've written together. Long story short, that song ended up, you know, all over iTunes and all that stuff, because we normally distribute on the same, you know, like all the digital outlets and stuff. And record sales had done so well that Billboard actually contacted us asking us for artwork. And like, they don't come to you unless they're for sure you guys are gonna, you know, break the top 40. And so we submitted artwork, but I don't know what happened, but we never quite got there. But man, what a rush. When you put that song out and you start to see the numbers climb, and you start to see Spotify downloads and all this stuff, it was like, man, we got something here. And we're super proud of that song. And we've been just kind of riding that momentum for the last couple of months. It's just been fantastic. And so, I mean, we're always writing. We're always, you know, on the road, always touring. You know, right now, we just recorded a song called American Thunder, which was, you know, an older song that Ron had written in a previous band. And we re-released that with a couple of guest stars, you know, from around the country. And it was fantastic. So we're just constantly recording, constantly touring, you know, like you do.
Yeah, and it's awesome to hear these successes, because you guys are working hard. You are working pretty darn hard.
Yeah, and it is tough right now because, as you know, the pandemic kind of hurt a lot of things, and we were on a serious roll when the pandemic hit. We were in Australia, and we had just gotten off the Monsters of Rock cruise. We hit Australia for a 2-week tour with Enough's Enough Winger and Janet Gardner from Vixen, and a couple other bands from Europe were on that tour as well. And we were supposed to have a Canadian tour, you know, right after that, but the pandemic came around and just shut everything down. We barely made it in the country, you know, on the flights back from Australia, and man, things just haven't quite bounced back yet like they were pre-pandemic, but we're still out there touring. We're still in demand. You know, every year you can always count on Sturgis to come through no matter what. We do have more Australia dates coming up this year, so you know, things are starting to kind of come back. You know, we've got
That's
some.
good to hear.
We got a lot of stuff. You know, in the Midwestern. You know, nothing. I don't know if anybody in Columbus really pays attention. I don't know. Maybe they do, but I mean, we're out there. But it's mainly Midwest. You know, Kansas, Minnesota, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming, that kind of stuff. So we're touring.
Awesome.
We're out there.
Now, are you guys all geographically kind of in the same area as far as residences? How's the band operate?
No, the bass player, who is Keel's bass player as well, he's in Alabama. I'm in Cincinnati area. Ron, of course, is in South Dakota. The drummer's in South Dakota, and the other guitar player lives in the Carolinas. So every time we get together, it has to be, you know, we have to coordinate flights and all that stuff, but it all works out. Yeah, at first everybody was in South Dakota. Pandemic hits and everybody had to pay bills, man. And we needed some people needed help from family, some people didn't. But yeah.
Adjustments like everything, but you know, it seems, you know, with music and with the band there, like corporate America, things kind of went virtual.
Yeah.
And you adjust, right?
Yeah, you have to. I mean, you have to adjust whether there's a pandemic or not. You always have to adjust. That's what kind of keeps you relevant in the music business, whether it be technologically or even style or, you know, genre or whatever. You got to stay relevant. And I think one of the biggest adjustments we made was on a technological level. So how do you write? Well, thank goodness for the computer, because we did a lot of recording. South by South Dakota album that was released after Fight Like a Band was, like most of my stuff was done in my workstation at home, and I would just send in the files to Cat House Studios, and we, you know, a lot of guys in the band were able to do that, so we were able to, you know, I mean, manage to throw that album together. Honestly, it was that. Kind of a side note, that South by South Dakota album is nothing but covers. I don't know if you've heard that one yet or not. I don't think I brought it up, but it's nothing but Southern rock classics. You know, like Molly Hatchet and Leonard Skinner and all that stuff. And you know, all the drums were actually cut when we were doing Fight Like a Band. Every day we'd get in there and we'd start warming up on all these classic rock songs, you know, or classic, you know, country rock songs, and we didn't know it, but our engineer was recording all this stuff. So all the drum tracks and all the bass were cut already. All we needed was guitar, and so I just did all that stuff from my house, and you know, Ron went in and did all the vocals. So it's like, okay, might as well throw an album out there, and it was South by South Dakota, and that was a really good album. I mean, if you like Southern rock, we did our flavor of it all. So you know, just going back to the technological, you know, changes that we had to make. I mean, we can't. This was at a time when we can't get together and play a regular gig. So what do? You put out more music online, you know?
Yeah, and you're doing this all in your own home studios, right? Except for what was done in the actual studio with vocals and drums. Everyone else's pieces were done remotely at home.
You have to. You know, you don't really have a choice, you know? But,
and then how does it get mastered then? Is that all Ron Keel then?
You know, I once I'm done with my part, that kind of, all the files get bundled up together and it's somebody else's deal. But I know that a lot of what we do gets mastered in Nashville, and I think the Ron Keel band, before it was Ron Keel band, was a band called the Badlands House Band, and I want to say, I forget who did the mastering on it, but I mean, it goes to some seriously big shots in Nashville, and then outspits a beautiful sounding record. Yeah.
Well, that brings up a good question. I mean, you know, what medium are you guys strictly streaming, or do you?
We do everything. I mean, like the record company will, you know, depending on demand, you know, they'll do vinyl, they'll do CDs, and then of course streaming. So, when you get signed, you know, they have distribution of CDs and records. And I've actually gone into local record stores in Cincinnati and in Kentucky, and I found our own stuff on the shelves. So we have that. But then there's also Spotify is probably our biggest revenue generator, but it goes to the YouTube and to the Apple and iTunes and Spotify and all that stuff. So yeah, that's a big part. That's a big part of the record deal. Yeah,
very interesting.
Yeah, it's cool stuff.
But you have dates too. You're out live and
we have we'll be out all the entire month of June, out in the Dakotas. We have there's some country rock kind of festivals that happen this time of year. So we're playing with Alabama, and then we're headlining another night at this festival, and then we have some other things that are happening in the Dakotas and out west. The names escape me right now. I'm totally failing on it, but
there's a lot going on.
Yeah,
that's good to hear.
Yeah,
and I think it's
well, it's funny because little personal note. I moved into a house, and man, you know how it is when you move into a house. You've got a laundry list of things that you need to do, and then we made the mistake of installing a swimming pool in our backyard. So
why is that a mistake?
Because you rely on contractors to do the right job at the right time, the right way, and that doesn't always happen that way. So you become a project manager, which you don't have time for because you have to rehearse and get ready for your tour, and it's a mess. It is.
Where is that project right now?
That project is the swimming pool itself is up, and I'm able to swim in it.
Oh, that's good.
But we don't have all the retaining walls and all that stuff, so it's getting there. Yeah,
the icing on the cake is coming.
Yeah, it is. It's the icing on the cake. But honestly, it's like I struggle, and this is probably just a Dave thing, but I struggle to try and keep all the details of like even when to be at the airport. I'm overwhelmed. I know I am, but I just feel bad. I don't know where these shows are. I know one of the first on our tour is a festival called Kickin' Up Country. It's in Carlstadt, Minnesota, and then we have a couple of nights there that we're doing, and then we have some. It's a new venue in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the week after that. And I don't know that I was ever really given the name of the venue. I just know it's a brand new one, just opened up in South Dakota. I don't know the name of the place yet. And then there's a place in Wyoming that we're playing later on in the month that I've never been to before, and I'm not sure I was ever really even given the venue name. But yeah, the month is going to be crazy. Then we have a little bit of time off in July, and then August we've got Sturgis, and then another 2-week tour in Australia. It might be 3 weeks. So Australia is going to hit Melbourne, Sydney, Newcastle, Brisbane, and I heard Tasmania.
Very exciting.
And Perth.
And have you been to these cities in the past?
Yeah. Actually, the first I went to Australia with the band in 2020, right before the pandemic hit, like I said. And man, you want to talk about first class everything. Like everybody was given these like top-notch hotels, perfect coordinated rides back and forth to the gigs, and had a production company that was on the ball every night. And it was just, this is how good it can be. You know, Len, you've played some shows where things don't go exactly, the way you want them to, and you end up having a 4-hour long sound check, right? I'm sure you've experienced this, right? But this was like literally, somebody hands you your guitar, and you get on stage and you play.
That's awesome.
Once they get everything set in the system, then you go. And
yeah, David, I'm still playing, where the monitor for me is going. I mean, come on.
Yeah, it wasn't too long ago that was happening to me.
I still love to play, though. I do, and
I knew it. See, I knew that the first day I met you. You have like that rock and roll guitar in your blood, and you're going to take it to your grave.
Yeah, my body is failing me right now. But aside from that, I do love to play, and I love my bandmates, and I will do it to my last day. As will you, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's probably what's keeping you alive right now. Is
my gig last night rolled in at 3 a.m. and you showed up this morning. I was all chipper.
I looked at your face. I'm like, oh, this guy's tired. You've got gig face on.
I was very happy to see you and Jennifer.
Yeah, it was good to be here, man, for sure. But it reminds me, the gig face. we were playing in Pittsburgh, and I remember there was like an unlimited amount of Jägermeister and Jack Daniels being delivered to the band all night long, and I definitely partaken. I drank my own body weight in Jack Daniels that night. That's for sure.
In Pittsburgh. What year are we talking?
Oh man, that was, I don't know, 2004 or 5, something like that. It was mid 2000s, and unfortunately, some other people aren't able to handle their liquor that well. Should I get into that?
David Cothern?
No, I was fine. I was good.
No, not as well as David.
Oh
Cothern,
yeah, right. Yeah, I was good. But we were playing with. It was a great gig. It was down at. It was Station Square, I believe, in Pittsburgh, and it was a Hard Rock Cafe. And they opened up the restaurant to be a concert venue, and I was in this Metallica tribute band, the Four Horsemen, with I want to say Rick Martellino, Matt Bradley, and Sean Pruden. Prudog. I love that guy.
No, that trio is Hot Lucy in Columbus. They have a cover band.
Yeah.
Primarily just kicking it.
I bet those guys are awesome.
They are.
There's no weakness.
They are absolutely incredible. As are a lot of folks, but that trio has been around. And you played with these guys.
Every one of those guys is a great player and great people.
Yes.
Great players. And they'll take it to their grave too. They're never going to stop.
Never.
No, and then they shouldn't, because they're fantastic. I've been a big Matt Bradley fan for a long time. That guy can play. He can play anything.
I love Matt. There's so many.
Yeah.
But so you're playing with what is now Hot Lucy in Columbus,
right?
In Pittsburgh in 2004 or so.
Yeah, and there's just an unlimited amount of alcohol in the background. So one of the opening bands was a band called Minnie Manson, and Minnie Manson was. Just look it up on YouTube. I think that's probably, we'll just leave it at that. But Minnie Manson could not handle the same amount of alcohol as Matt Bradley, Dave Cothern, Len D'Amico.
You're tall, big people, right?
Yeah, we're tall, big people.
This gentleman wasn't very tall, was he?
No,
I don't think.
No.
Is he still with us?
I don't know.
Okay, we'll have to look it up.
I really don't know. I would be interested to hear. But this particular individual who was playing the role of Marilyn Manson had his share of Jaeger. And as kind of happens to everybody at some point in your life, you learn too late what your limit is. And that alcohol has to come out somewhere. And it came out right on my guitar case. I mean, like, this guy is hacking up in my guitar.
And your guitar's in the case? And it's open?
Shame on me, but it was open.
Oh, David.
I know, like, I was done, and I don't know why I didn't have the case closed, but it was open, and he's yakking, and I'm out in the audience watching, I don't know, whatever, and someone says, "Hey, are you Dave Cothern?" I said, "Yeah. I think I need to talk to you about your guitar." I'm like, okay, so I go back, and there's yak all over, for crying out loud. But, I guess you could look at it, that's rock and roll, isn't it, mate? There's nothing more rock and roll than that.
These go to 11.
Yeah, but yeah, it was just awful. And, And
that was after you played, right?
Yeah, it was after I played. Yeah, thank God. And that's the whole reason the guitar was out in the first place. But it was, that's my memory of the thing. And there were some very unhappy people. I could make a long story really short, but there were some really unhappy concert promoters after that happened. And I think somehow I got an earful more than most. And I'm not sure why.
Why would you get an earful over an incident that you were guilty of leaving your guitar case open with your guitar in it, and it was violated?
It was violated in the worst way. Well, I had a friend at the radio station. The radio station that had put on this show I had a friend at the station, and I thought I was talking to two buddies, so I called the radio station. I'm like, man, you're never going to believe what happened, my guitar out, and I was probably polishing the strings, and I walked away, and this guy yaks in my guitar case, and so I thought I was talking to two buddies, right? Like I would call you and say, but, hey, man, Len, this happened, but this guy goes online, live on the air to describe, hey, the guitar player from, the Four Horsemen just told me Minnie Manson, puked in his guitar case. Blah, blah, blah. Well, the concert promoter heard that I called in, and then I got an earful. But I'm like, I don't know. It's a fun story. Man. Come on, man. Let's laugh about it.
It's hilarious. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I've got other stories. I don't know if I ever told you, Lynn, but probably the worst catastrophe that ever happened on stage for me was I was playing in a band, Petty Theft, and we were playing at the Alrosa Villa.
What year are we talking?
Oh, man, it's probably 1987. Big hair, spandex, the whole thing.
And you're a bass player at this point, right?
I'm a bass player,
okay.
Yeah. And so I have this... back in those days, the headstock of the guitar pointed down to a fine point, or at least it was for a while. And so in Petty Theft, you kind of see where I'm going with this. But, in this day, choreograph was a very big part of your show. Everybody spins, everybody hops, jumps down on your knees, and then there's pyro and all this stuff. So Petty Theft was kind of no different, right? We had our little choreographed moves. And we have been doing this move where we spin to our left. We've been doing this for years. And our guitar player, who had all white on, he was head to toe in like this white half tuxedo thing, has a tray of shots that someone from the bar gave to him. He was putting the shots down on the drum riser at the time we were doing the spin, and he got my bass right across his nose, broke it, right there on stage, and if you've ever seen a bloody nose, it just gushes out of your nose.
Yeah.
So he's
headshot. He's
trying to finish the song, and he can't even make the end of the song because he was just like, oh my god, and so yeah, and we were like, oh crap, what are we gonna do now? And if memory serves me right, I think Mark Chatfield was backstage that particular moment and saw it, and he just kind of stepped in, and so we finished the rest of the night just doing standard rock covers like Smoke on the Water and Rock and Roll by Led Zeppelin, anything that he could just hang with, like, hey, let's do it. But,
for sure. That's
what
cool.
A catastrophic moment. And I know my friend Mike Geezy, he was there to see it, and God bless Mike Geezy, because like I was feeling really bad about it, and Mike was like, hey, look, rock and roll isn't perfect. Everybody makes mistakes, and you got to give yourself permission to make a mistake every once in a while. And I don't know, just the way he phrased it, it was just like very helpful, at that time. But what a catastrophe! That's like my Spinal Tap moment of all time. It was awful. I felt so bad.
It could have been worse. It could have been worse. And things happen on stage, right?
Well, do you have a catastrophic moment that you...
Ooh, you're going to pin me down.
I'm going to become the interviewer. Or
some people want to do that. Catastrophic moments.
Yeah.
Probably right now. Like my stage presence is horrible right now.
Oh man, that sucks. I hate that.
I'm dealing with some health issues, but it's just it's catastrophic. Believe me, but.
Yeah.
To me, it is,
yeah.
But I don't think anybody else really cares. And my bandmates have been real supportive.
Oh, that's
cool about it. But
that's cool. Well, you just need more rock and roll. It'll take care of everything.
It does.
I got a buddy in Minnesota who's battling cancer. He's been fighting esophageal cancer for probably 4 years now, and so it was bad enough to where he asked me to fill in for his band. His name is Michael Schneider, and he plays for a band called Hairball. And I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but I stepped in for a little bit to help him. But I'm telling you, he is just beating the odds, and I couldn't be any more proud of him with the amount of effort and that he's putting into taking care of his body and all that stuff. And I swear to you, I think rock and roll is healing him. So I'll say to you, Mr. D'Amico, I think rock and roll will fix everything.
I have to agree with you.
And if rock and roll on its own isn't going to help you, just add more pyro It helps everything.
Pyro makes it fun.
Oh yeah, until your hair catches on fire. But
oh man,
I know we're all over the map, aren't we?
We are, and I like it like that.
Yeah,
I do, and David, it's amazing to see your music career, and like I said, everyone that I've encountered, where your name comes up and people revere you.
Man, that makes me feel good, because sometimes I wonder, like, I don't know if I'm seen as the guy who left Ohio. Like, I still care about everybody in Ohio. I still miss everybody, and what they think means something to me. I don't care. I mean, it's just in my DNA. As a matter of fact, I remember I was playing guitar for Rob Halford, and I was just having a moment where I felt like I wasn't worth it, or worthy of the opportunity. And I called my old drummer Keith Cothern, and Keith is like, he is my longtime friend. I've known this guy since first grade, probably, I think. And he had some very encouraging words at a time when I felt like maybe I wasn't deserving of all this opportunity. But it's to your point. I mean, everybody's just they're cheerleading for me, and that means the world to me, because Columbus is my home. It'll always be my home. And man, I probably owe everything that I have right now to anybody who supported me growing up, because if without their support, none of this would be possible at all.
Do you encounter people, like, you're traveling the world with the Ron Keel Band? Do you encounter people from Columbus that are still in the music business?
I do. What comes to mind first is I was in Sydney, Australia, and I had a Shock 2 shirt on. And
that's awesome. That's so awesome you're wearing that.
Yeah, I mean, so it was, and I'll talk about Shock 2 here in a second, but I'm just wearing it, no big deal. And so we're getting ready to do sound check, and some guy comes up to me and says, "Oh my God, Shock 2? Really?" And I'm like, I don't know who this guy is, and it ended up being Michael Beasley. I don't know if you know him, but he works for Enough's Enough now. And so we instantly had an Alvaro Sevilla talk. Oh, remember, and I was hanging out with so-and-so and just going through memory lane with this guy. And I'm like, wow, that's really, really cool. And there was another time I was in Sturgis, and I didn't have any shirt on that identified me as a Columbus, like I didn't have an Ohio State Buckeye on anything. And one of the monitor guys at Sturgis at the Iron Horse came up and said, "Weren't you in Dirty Side Down?" I'm like, oh my God, like, who is this guy? And apparently he had worked the Columbus music scene, and now he's working out at Sturgis, and he lives out there now. He's like the house sound guy out there for the Iron Horse. But
that's so cool.
Yeah, I do, man. I run into Columbus, Ohio people all over the place, and it's sometimes when you're out there, it gets lonely, and when you find somebody that's from your hometown, it's like super comforting, because the strange land, not strange land, I don't mean to make it sound like I'm on Mars or anything,
it's
but
different though.
Man, it's so comfortable when you can identify with somebody. Yeah, but the Shock 2 shirt was, I still wear that all the time. But Shock 2 to me was, that's the way I picture the perfect rock show. I mean, Joey C. Jones, and Slick Rick Soga, the Hawaiian Ripper, and Jimmy Miller. And, man, that was just such a great band. And it's funny because right before Joey died, I coincidentally sent him a text. I had pulled up "Coming on YouTube, and to me that still makes the hair on my arm stand up. That is metal just the way I like it. And so I text Joey. I said, "Hey man, you know what? I got to thank you for all that you did for you wrote the soundtrack to my youth, with what he did in Sweet Savage and what he did in Shock 2. And man, you got a lot to feel good about, bro." And I'm like, thanks so much for everything that you've done. You're a living legend. And I literally said that to him, and I had no idea he was even sick. So I'm sure those were great words for him to hear, but he later, told me he was sick and all that. But man, I have that bar, Shock 2, that I'm still trying to, even though I've played with, all these people, I'm still trying to get to that point where I feel like we're at Shock 2 level, And I'm sure there's times we are, but I don't know. In my head, I've probably made Shock 2 into gods, and yeah, that's a joke there. Shock 2 into gods. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, traveling the world and meeting people and bringing you back to Columbus is, it's a moment, right? It's good. It's good to feel your life.
Yeah, and it's so weird because life can happen so fast. Anybody who's, I don't know, I think anybody who's kind of reached a certain level of success, you're in your basement one moment, and the next thing you know, you're playing in front of 30,000 people. I just happen to know a person who happened to know a person, and next thing I know, I'm playing with Paul Stanley. Like, what? I mean, and it happened over and over and over again. So I'm incredibly thankful and blessed beyond what I deserve.
You deserve every moment, David.
I appreciate that.
I know how hard you work.
Yeah,
I've witnessed it. I mean, I've been in your home studio, and that was years ago. I mean, yeah. I know, your ethic. I know the essence of your work ethic. It's as hard as it comes, and as focused as it can get.
It's funny that you bring that up, because I think that the whole reason all this stuff started happening is that Ron Keel needed a fill-in guitar player for a weekend. I got the set list about a month in advance, and I just woodshed, and I probably practiced more on my own than I should have. But what it did was it allowed me to come in to a rehearsal with Ron, and there was like, okay, we're ready. One rehearsal and we were show ready. And I think that sent a message to Ron, like I was up to the task. I'm not afraid of the hard work, and there was some intangible things, like he sees rock and roll the way I see rock and roll. You can't prepare for that. There's nothing you can do. That was just a happy coincidence, but he saw the work ethic, and after that weekend's worth of shows, he came up to me, he says, hey, your money. He gives me the little money sign. He goes, if you're interested, I got some work for you in 2014, 2015. And I'm like, that's how a door is open. Yep. And then after that, Ron knows everybody in the music business. He's tight with Kiss and everybody. But after that, it was like anytime anybody needed a fill-in guitar player for anything, I was getting the call. And that's how I was able to play with everybody. It was just, it's just weird because
phenomenal.
Well, I mean, like I said, you're literally in one place, and then a week later you could be playing with some big time names, and it's like, there is truth. I mean, I'm sure everybody's heard you. Sometimes it's not about how good you are. It's just being in the right place at the right time.
You have to be badass. Okay.
Well, yeah, you
have to have the skill, which you do, obviously, and you. I mean, I've been a fan personally, since day one, David. I just love, and even at the beginning of this, we listened to just a tiny snippet of one of my favorite solos that you've done, that you've turned me on to over, and I think that having that innate ability and being able to network like you have, and making the best of those moments because of your work ethic gets you to do the things that you get to do. And I mean, just it's very inspiring.
Oh, that's cool. I'm glad you feel that way. I mean, that's awesome.
Yeah, and your heart too is so big. And like last night, it was 2:00 in the morning. I'm winding my cables to my guitar. I got two cables, one to my pedal board, and one back from the pedal board back to the amp.
Yeah.
And I was just playing a little 20-aught little Vox thing, and but I'm winding these cables, and I knew you were coming over today. And I'm winding the cables. I'm like, David Cothern taught me how to really, fold up the guitar cables. And, just the times we've spent together have been memorable, and I was a sponge, and I still am a sponge to learn. But for you to take the time to show people, and some tips like, on not just technically playing guitar, but behaviors that are good in music and behaviors that are not so good. Those are things that I took to heart, when we have had those conversations over the years. So I appreciate everything that you've done personally, but I also appreciate what you do for the world with your music.
Oh man, wow! But there's good news, because if that good-hearted giving of yourself, what you and I share of the love of guitar happens when you get up to meet some of the big-time people, like Rob Halford. He's the same way. Like, you would get along great with Rob because he just loves music, and you can just tell, and he will embrace anybody who has that like mind. Paul Stanley's the same way, and probably the two of the nicest people in music is Mark Slaughter from the band Slaughter and Night Ranger, Jack Blades. You want to talk about two of the nicest people, but I think they are super nice to me. I think because we have that common bond and we can read each other. Like, I can tell Jack Blades he just loves music, and I think he can see that in me. And so if you have that, then you get along like brothers, just like you and I do. So I'm just telling you this, Len, because you could be in your apartment today, right? And next week, you just don't know, right? You could be, but there's good news, is because there's more people who operate this way like you and I do, all the way up the food chain, into the stratosphere. Really, really nice people. But there's also a clunker here and there. I won't mention any names, but you'll know when you see them.
We have that everywhere in life.
Yeah. I mean, heck, everybody has that at their job, But it's really cool just to know, because you just when you're meeting these people who are famous, you just don't know what you're gonna get. First time, I don't know, Piercy steps on stage, I don't know what I'm gonna get. I've never met the guy before. Some people say he's an idiot. Some people say he's great. I think he's great. He's a fantastic guy. And we have that understanding too. Just the love of music. He can read me and I can read him. It's great.
Very cool.
Yeah. It's really cool stuff.
How do we stay in touch with you, David?
Well, I guess probably the best way is ronkeelband.com. There's also Ron Keel Band on Facebook. There's the Ron Keel Patreon page as well that you can get to off of Facebook as well. And I think wherever you find Ron Keel, you'll find me. That's for sure. That guy, I'll take a bullet for him.
Oh man,
he's a great guy.
Yeah, there's definitely a brotherhood you see when you're performing. But I know, I've seen some home videos that you've shown me where there's some camaraderie there that is really, really a special brotherhood.
Yeah, like I told you, Ron and I see rock and roll through the same set of lenses. And man, there's some times on stage where I can just feel the energy, and on and off stage, he and I are brothers for sure. And like I said, I'd take a bullet for that guy. And honestly, just kind of go off on a little Ron Keel tangent here for a second. I'll say no one puts as much energy and effort into the rock and roll than Ron Keel does. First guy on the job, last guy at the end of the night standing. That guy works harder than anybody I've ever seen, and as a result, he stays relevant.
Twisted Blue Steel.
Fight
like a band.
Yeah.
Great album. Check that out on Spotify, and I think you've got
all the regular digital outlets, right? Apple Music
platforms.
Yeah, Apple Music.
We'll put some links in the podcast description.
Sure.
To get to some of this music. It's fantastic, and we're running out of time here for the technological capabilities of the podcast, Mr. Cothern.
Yes.
As always, it is absolutely fantastic to see you and hang out. I appreciate you coming over.
Pleasure is all mine. We can't let another 20 years go by. That was way too long.
We haven't. There have been some times where we've run into each other briefly.
That's true. Yeah.
And of course we text now and then, which is always cool. Or I'll do a little picture of like Jimmy Hahn.
Oh, Jimmy Hahn. Great guy.
Sound man, Wolf Sound, who I think was exclusive to Dirty Side Down back in the day.
Yeah, that guy is he is the Michael Jordan or the Eddie Van Halen of the sound world. He's really, really good.
And the only reason I do that for you, David, is because I know you appreciate Columbus, Ohio, and I know you appreciate these faces. And
I mean,
we'll continue to do that.
It's never going to go away. I love everybody in Columbus. I really, really do.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks again, and this will be episode 7 of Columbus Local Podcast. So, thanks again, David, and you're welcome back anytime.
Yeah,
I know you got a million stories.
I do, and not enough time to tell them all. But thanks to everybody in Columbus for every T-shirt you ever bought, every ticket that you've ever purchased, every show that you've attended, and all the support that you've given over the years. I cannot thank you enough.
Fantastic, man. Thanks again.
OH.
Have a great day. I.O.